The NBA has seen its share of triumphs and heartbreaks, but some losses have cut deeper than most, not just for teammates and family, but for fans around the world. From tragic accidents to unexpected health collapses, these are 5 of the most devastating deaths in NBA history.
New video shows Kobe Bryant's doomed helicopter just minutes from disaster. You can see the chopper disappear into the clouds.
The morning of January 26, 2020, felt ordinary quiet skies over Los Angeles, a soft winter haze hanging over the hills, another Sunday in the city of stars. But within hours, that calm would shatter in a way no one could have imagined. Shortly before 9 a.m., Kobe Bryant boarded a chartered Sikorsky S-76 at John Wayne Airport in Orange County. With him were his 13-year-old daughter, Gianna Bryant, 6 family friends, and the pilot. They were heading to a girls' basketball tournament at the Mamba Sports Academy in Thousand Oaks, a trip Bryant had made countless times to avoid Southern California traffic. Flying by helicopter had become routine for him during his Lakers years, a way to preserve time with family. It was supposed to be simple, quick, efficient. But that morning, heavy fog blanketed parts of Southern California. Low clouds clung to the hills near Calabasas. Other law enforcement helicopters in the area were grounded due to poor visibility. Air traffic control audio later revealed the pilot requesting special clearance to navigate through the thick cloud layer. For several minutes, the helicopter circled, waiting for permission to proceed. When it finally continued, it climbed sharply, attempting to rise above the fog. Inside the clouds, visibility dropped to near zero. Investigators would later determine that the helicopter likely entered a condition known as spatial disorientation, when a pilot loses visual reference and can no longer accurately perceive the aircraft's position or movement. In those final seconds, the helicopter descended rapidly. At 9:45 a.m., it slammed into a hillside at high speed. The impact was catastrophic. There were no survivors. Authorities would later confirm all 9 people on board were killed instantly. The hillside burned. Debris scattered across the terrain. First responders hiked through difficult ground and heavy fog to reach the crash site. Yet, before officials could make formal statements, the news broke online. A report from TMZ spread like wildfire. Phones buzzed across the country. At first, many believed it had to be a mistake, another internet hoax, a cruel rumor. But it wasn't. As confirmation followed, disbelief turned into collective grief. At NBA arenas that afternoon, games were underway. Players learned the news in real time. Some left the court in tears. Coaches struggled to speak. Commentators fell silent on live broadcasts. Moments of silence were held spontaneously across the league. LeBron James, who had passed Bryant on the NBA's all-time scoring list just the night before, later spoke of being shattered. Michael Jordan delivered an emotional memorial speech weeks later, calling Bryant a little brother. Outside the Staples Center, now Crypto.com arena, thousands gathered in shock. Jerseys bearing numbers 8 and 24 covered the pavement. Candles flickered through the night. Handwritten messages, sneakers, flowers, and basketballs formed a sea of tribute. Bryant's career had already become legend. A 5-time NBA champion with the Los Angeles Lakers, an 18-time All-Star, a 2-time Finals MVP, the embodiment of the Mamba mentality, a philosophy of relentless discipline and obsession with improvement. In 2018, he had even won an Academy Award for his animated short film, Dear Basketball, proving his ambition stretched far beyond the court. He had retired in 2016 with a 60-point farewell performance, a storybook ending that felt almost cinematic. But what made the tragedy even more devastating was Gianna. Gigi had inherited her father's intensity, the footwork, the competitive glare, the deep love of the game. Bryant had openly championed women's basketball, frequently attending WNBA games and advocating for its growth. Many believed Gianna could have become a transformative figure in the sport. That future, the practices, the championships, the milestones, vanished in a single moment. The grief was global. Murals appeared overnight in cities across the world, from Manila to Milan, from downtown Los Angeles to small towns thousands of miles away. Athletes across every sport paid tribute. The NBA postponed games. At the 2020 All-Star Game in Chicago, Teams honored Bryant and Gianna by wearing their numbers, 24 and 2, and adopting a special format to memorialize them. Weeks later, a public memorial at the arena drew thousands. Stories were shared not only about Kobe the competitor, but Kobe the father, coaching youth teams, studying film with his daughters, planning a second chapter centered around mentorship and storytelling. In the years that followed, investigations by the National Transportation Safety Board concluded that the crash was caused by the pilot's decision to continue flying into deteriorating weather conditions, leading to spatial disorientation. The tragedy sparked renewed conversations about helicopter safety regulations and weather minimums. Yet for millions, the technical findings did little to ease the emotional weight of that day. On a warm August evening in 2001, a routine Russian Premier League match became one of the darkest nights in football history. The stadium lights were blazing, the game was tense, and in goal for CSKA Moscow stood 23-year-old Serhiy Perkhun, a goalkeeper whose career was only just beginning. Against FC Anzi Makhachkala, Perkhun rushed off his line to challenge for a high ball. An opposing striker leapt at the same moment. Heads collided mid-air. The sound echoed. The crowd fell silent. At first, it didn't look fatal, just another brutal clash in a physical league. Perkhun lay on the pitch, medical staff surrounding him. He briefly regained consciousness. There was hope. In football, players get knocked down and come back all the time. But this time was different. Born on September 4th, 1977, in Dnipropetrovsk, now Dnipro, Ukraine, Perkhun had been a prodigy from the start. At just 16 years and 34 days old, he debuted in Ukraine's top division for FC Dnipro, becoming the youngest player in league history at the time. Calm, fearless, and mature beyond his years, he steadily built his reputation. A move to FC Sheriff Tiraspol followed, where he became first-choice goalkeeper and won the 1998-99 Moldovan Cup. In early 2001, he signed with CSKA Moscow and quickly claimed the starting spot. In 13 league matches, he kept 5 clean sheets and conceded just 6 goals. His rise was undeniable. Days before the collision, he earned his senior debut for Ukraine in a friendly against Latvia, playing the second half in a 1-0 win. It felt like the start of something bigger. More caps, bigger stages, a long career ahead. 3 days later, everything changed. What initially seemed like a severe concussion became far worse. A cerebral hemorrhage developed. His condition deteriorated rapidly. He suffered cardiac arrest and was transferred to a military hospital in Moscow. For 10 days, doctors fought to save him. On August 28, 2001, Serhiy Perkhun died. He was 23. He remains the only player in Russian Premier League history to die from injuries sustained during an official match. The shock rippled through football communities in both Ukraine and Russia. Rivalries faded into the background. This wasn't about competition anymore. It was about loss. His body was returned to his hometown, where thousands gathered for his funeral. Teammates from CSKA Moscow stood shoulder to shoulder with family members. Fans wept openly. The grief felt collective, raw. In response, CSKA Moscow made a decision that spoke volumes. They retired the number 16 shirt, the number Perkhun wore. No future player at the club would ever wear it again. In football, shirt numbers carry history. By retiring his, CSKA ensured that his presence would never fade into statistics. Every time fans look at the squad list and see 16 missing, they remember. And his story didn't vanish with time. In Dnipro, a monument was erected in his honor. Annual tournaments have been held in his name. His father even wrote a book, My Son is a Goalkeeper, preserving the memory not just of a footballer, but of a son, a husband, a father. Perkhun's career lasted only around 80 professional matches. 1 senior international cap, a domestic cup title. On paper, it seems brief. But his story is not about statistics, it's about promise. A teenage record breaker, a rising first-choice goalkeeper, a national team debutant whose future was unfolding in real time. Every time a goalkeeper charges into traffic to claim a ball, there is risk in that bravery. Serhiy Perkhun stepped onto the pitch on August 18, 2001, expecting to play 90 minutes of football. He never left the game alive. More than 2 decades later, his story remains a painful reminder of how fragile even the strongest athletes can be, and how one moment can change everything.
For Drazen Petrovic, the Nets star was killed on Monday evening in a car accident in Germany.
June 7, 1993. The NBA Finals were only days away. In the United States, cameras were focused on superstars, storylines, and championship pressure. But thousands of miles away, on a rain-soaked stretch of the Autobahn in Germany, basketball was about to lose one of its brightest global pioneers. Drazen Petrovic was no longer just a European sensation by 1993. He was an NBA star in full bloom. Before arriving in America, he had already dominated European competition with clubs like Real Madrid Baloncesto and led the Yugoslav national team to international glory. His scoring outbursts were legendary, his confidence unmistakable. But the NBA had once doubted players from Europe, labeling them soft, untested, or too reliant on finesse. Petrovic took that personally. After early struggles with limited minutes on the Portland Trail Blazers, he forced his way into a larger role, following a trade to the New Jersey Nets. By the 1992-93 season, he wasn't just contributing, he was thriving. He averaged 22.3 points per game, shot nearly 52% from the field, over 44% from three. He attacked defenders without hesitation, talked back to opponents, demanded the ball in clutch moments. He played with visible fire, a blend of European skill and street-level competitiveness that reshaped perceptions. He wasn't surviving in the NBA, he was conquering it. That summer, after helping Croatia compete in international qualifiers, continuing to carry his young nation's pride following its independence, Petrovic chose to travel back to Germany by car rather than fly with teammates. He was a passenger in a Volkswagen Golf traveling along the Autobahn near Denkendorf. Heavy rain poured down. The highway was slick. Visibility dropped. Traffic ahead slowed suddenly due to congestion. The car in front braked. In a split second, disaster unfolded. The vehicle carrying Petrovic collided at high speed with a truck that had stopped on the roadway. The impact was devastating. Reports later indicated that Petrovic was not wearing a seatbelt. He was killed instantly. He was 28 years old. News first broke in Europe, then surged across American sports networks. Inside NBA circles, disbelief took hold. Teammates were stunned. Coaches were speechless. Fans struggled to comprehend how a player in his absolute prime, just entering what should have been his peak years, could be gone overnight. Before Game 1 of the 1993 NBA Finals, the league held a moment of silence. Arenas dimmed, heads bowed. For many international players watching from overseas, that silence carried weight. Petrovic had fought for respect in a league that once dismissed European toughness. He jawed with American stars. He refused to be intimidated. He demanded equal footing and earned it. In Croatia, he became more than an athlete. He was a national symbol during a period of political upheaval and emerging identity. In the NBA, he became proof that international talent could dominate, not just participate. Years later, he was posthumously inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. His number 3 jersey was retired by the Nets. A museum in Zagreb preserves his memory. Murals, tributes, and annual commemorations continue.
Richards Bay FC have confirmed that one of their players has passed away. Club captain Siphamandla Mtolo has died. Spepe, as he was known to his teammates, collapsed during training, according to his team.
On the morning of 7th of March 2023, it was just another training session in KwaZulu-Natal. The sun was up, boots were laced, and teammates were going through routine drills with about 15 minutes left before wrapping up. Nothing felt unusual. Nothing felt dangerous. And then, without warning, Siphamandla Mtolo suddenly went down. At first, it didn't look like the end of a life. It looked like exhaustion, maybe a knock, maybe dizziness. But as teammates rushed toward him, panic replaced routine. He was struggling to breathe. The club's physiotherapist tried to help. Voices grew louder. Fear spread across the pitch. This wasn't just another training stoppage. There were no flashing stadium lights, no roaring crowd, no dramatic match moment. Just silence, confusion, and growing desperation. He was placed in a private car, there was no time to wait, and driven toward the hospital. Every second mattered. Every second felt heavier than the last, but he never made it. Siphamandla Mtolo was gone at just 29 years old. The news hit like a shockwave across South African football. Richards Bay FC, the club he captained and helped lead to promotion, confirmed the tragedy in a statement filled with grief. His presence, both on and off the pitch, will be missed, they wrote. But those words barely captured the emptiness left behind. Pepe wasn't just a midfielder. He was a leader. He had carried Richards Bay to the 2021-22 National First Division title, earning promotion to the country's top flight, the Premier Soccer League. When the dream of top division football finally arrived, fate tested him. A knee injury required surgery. He missed the start of the 2022-23 season. Many wondered when he would return. He came back sooner than expected. In December 2022, he stepped onto the pitch in the Premier Division, stronger, determined, wearing the captain's armband. It was a comeback story unfolding in real time. His final match came just days before his death on 4th March 2023 against Kaizer Chiefs, one of the biggest clubs in South Africa. No one watching could have imagined it would be the last time he would ever play. When the announcement was made, tributes poured in. The Premier Soccer League declared moments of silence at upcoming fixtures. The South African Football Association offered condolences, describing the loss as untimely and heartbreaking. Across stadiums that week, crowds stood quietly, thousands of people united in grief for a man who had collapsed in the most ordinary of moments. That's what makes it so painful. Not a final whistle, not a grand stage, just a regular morning, a normal drill, 15 minutes left. He was nicknamed Spepe, a name that echoed warmly among teammates and fans. He was buried in his hometown of Shakaskrao. At his funeral, held at Nkobongo Sports Ground, teammates carried his casket. The same players who had once celebrated victories with him now, walking in silence beside him. Football often feels larger than life. The goals, the rivalries, the trophies. But moments like this strip the game down to something painfully human. A 29-year-old captain, a comeback in motion, a life interrupted without warning.
All time. Yo, there she goes. Come on, let's see it. I know it's in here.
June 17th, 1986. The champagne from banner number 16 had barely dried. The Boston Celtics were still champions, still towering over the league with a roster built around brilliance and grit. And then, as if the basketball gods were piling on, Boston secured the second overall pick in the 1986 NBA draft. When they selected Len Bias out of the University of Maryland, it felt almost unfair. Bias wasn't just good, he was explosive. At 6'8", with a sculpted frame and breathtaking athleticism, he attacked the rim with violence and grace. His mid-range jumper was smooth. His first step was lethal. Coaches and scouts whispered that he was the only college player physically gifted enough to truly challenge the rising superstar in Chicago, Michael Jordan. Boston had just added youth to genius. The present and the future now wore green. Or so it seemed. 2 days later, Bias returned to campus in College Park. The celebrations were loud, electric, almost cinematic. Friends gathered in his dorm room. Laughter echoed down the hallways. The NBA contract was coming. A shoe deal had reportedly been agreed upon. He was about to join a locker room with Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and Robert Parrish. Championships didn't just feel possible. They felt inevitable. In the early morning hours of June 19th, the mood shifted. Bias had consumed cocaine, reportedly multiple times that night. Shortly after 6 a.m., he suddenly collapsed. Witnesses described violent convulsions, confusion, someone screaming his name, a desperate scramble to call 911. Paramedics arrived quickly. They attempted resuscitation. They fought to stabilize him, but his heart had gone into a fatal arrhythmia. The powerful body that had seemed indestructible on the basketball court could not withstand the chemical shock. He was pronounced dead at 22 years old, 48 hours after being drafted. He never wore a Celtics jersey in an NBA game, never stepped onto the parquet floor at the old Boston Garden, never heard the roar of a home crowd chanting his name. The shockwaves were immediate. This wasn't a veteran in decline. This wasn't a cautionary tale years removed from stardom. This was the future, vibrant, smiling on draft night, holding up a green cap. In Boston, disbelief turned into grief. Players who had prepared to mentor the next great forward instead attended memorial services. Coaches struggled to explain the unexplainable. Fans stared at front-page headlines in silence. Across the country, parents felt something deeper than sports sorrow. The image of a young, successful athlete at the absolute peak of promise, dying from cocaine, stunned the nation, and the ripple effects extended far beyond basketball. Bias's death became a rallying cry in America's escalating war on drugs. Lawmakers repeatedly invoked his name in speeches and hearings. Within months, Congress passed sweeping legislation known as the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986, which introduced harsh mandatory minimum sentencing policies that would reshape the U.S. criminal justice system for decades. A single night in a dorm room became part of national policy. But in NBA history, the ache remains more personal. What if? What if Len Bias had suited up beside Larry Bird, easing the physical burden on an aging Celtics core? What if his athleticism had shifted the balance of power in the late 1980s? What if the Celtics-Lakers rivalry had gained a new explosive chapter? What if he had become the rival the league needed to push Michael Jordan even further? Instead, Boston's dynasty began to fade. Injuries mounted. Bird's back deteriorated. The window closed faster than anyone expected. And somewhere in that timeline, there's an alternate version of the NBA where Len Bias is soaring above the rim, rewriting history. But that version never came to be. His story remains frozen on draft night, smiling, confident, holding limitless potential in his hands. In NBA history, few losses feel as chilling as Len Bias, because it wasn't just a career that ended. It was an era that never had the chance to begin. On a tense night in Sao Paulo, under the bright lights of a Copa Libertadores knockout match, no one expected football to stop breathing. The clock was ticking through the second half. The stadium was loud, alive, restless. Players were battling for every ball, and in the middle of it all was Juan Izquierdo, 27 years old, a center back in his prime, fighting for his team the way he always had. Then, without warning, he collapsed. At first, there was confusion. Players looked around, unsure of what they were seeing. Then panic crept in. Medical staff sprinted onto the pitch. Teammates waved frantically for help. The noise inside the stadium shifted, from chants and whistles to a stunned, suffocating silence. Izquierdo was rushed off and taken to the Albert Einstein Hospital in Sao Paulo. The diagnosis was cardiac arrhythmia. His heart, for reasons no one understood at the time, had fallen into a dangerous rhythm during one of the most physically intense moments of competition. Back home in Uruguay, football stopped. Matches in the first and second divisions were postponed. Rivalries were set aside. Supporters who normally argued over clubs were suddenly united in one desperate hope that Juan would wake up, that this would be another scare with a happy ending. But this time, it wasn't. To understand why his collapse hit so deeply, you have to understand who Juan Izquierdo was. Born on July 4, 1997, in Montevideo, he grew up in the Nuevo Paris neighborhood with dreams like so many Uruguayan kids. A ball at his feet and a stadium in his imagination. He began in the youth ranks of Liverpool Montevideo before making his professional debut with Cerro in 2018. Within days of his Copa Sudamericana debut, he stepped into Uruguay's Primera Division, thrown into the deep end against seasoned professionals. He didn't back down. Over the next few years, he carved out a reputation as a tough, dependable center back. He wore the colors of Peñarol, Montevideo Wanderers, Liverpool, and Nacional. He even took a chance abroad with Atlético San Luis in Mexico's Liga MX. The journey wasn't always smooth. There were limited minutes, injuries, frustrations, but he kept returning, kept fighting for his place. In 2022, he was part of a title-winning national squad, even though injury restricted his playing time. He spoke openly about how surreal it felt to share a club with Luis Suarez, a player he had admired as a boy. Imagine growing up watching your idol, then training beside him. In 2023, he moved to Liverpool Montevideo and delivered the best season of his career. He scored 3 goals in 31 appearances as the club won the league for the first time in over a century. He had made a promise to his dying grandfather that he would bring a title home. He kept that promise. Few players can say they won back-to-back league titles with different clubs in consecutive seasons. Juan Izquierdo did. By early 2024, he returned to Nacional, brought back to strengthen the defense. On May 3rd, he scored what would become the final goal of his life in a 4-2 win over Racing Club de Montevideo. No one watching that celebration could have imagined it would be his last. And then came August 22nd. During the Copa Libertadores round of 16 against São Paulo FC, Izquierdo collapsed. Doctors later confirmed the cause: cardiorespiratory arrest associated with cardiac arrhythmia. He had not been known to have any heart condition. According to his mother, doctors explained that a virus had entered his heart, triggering the fatal rhythm disturbance under the physical strain of the match. There had been no clear warning signs, just swollen lymph nodes, nothing that screamed danger. For 5 days, the football world waited. Juan Izquierdo didn't lose a match that evening. Football lost him. On a warm August night in Seville, the Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan Stadium was alive with noise. It was the opening La Liga match of the 2007-08 season, and few in the crowd could have imagined they were about to witness one of football's most heartbreaking moments. In the 35th minute, a young star in white, Antonio Puerta, suddenly crouched near the edge of the penalty area. For a second, it looked harmless, maybe dizziness, maybe cramp. Then he fell. Teammates Ivica Dragutinovic and Andres Palop rushed toward him as panic rippled through the stadium. The cheers turned to silence. Medical staff sprinted onto the pitch. Millions watching on television held their breath. Puerta briefly regained consciousness. He was helped to his feet. He even walked off the field on his own. And for a fragile moment, it seemed like everything might be okay. But behind the closed doors of the dressing room, tragedy struck again. He collapsed a second time. Doctors fought to revive him. CPR, oxygen, urgency. An ambulance carried him to Virgen del Rocío Hospital as fans gathered outside, praying, hoping, refusing to believe the worst could happen to a 22-year-old at the peak of his life. For 3 days, the football world waited. On 28th of August 2007, at 14:30, the devastating news was confirmed. Puerta had died after suffering multiple cardiac arrests caused by arrhythmogenic cardiomyopathy, a rare hereditary heart disease. He wasn't just another player. Born in Seville, he had joined Sevilla FC as a boy and spent 14 years growing through the club's youth system. He came up alongside names that would later become stars: Sergio Ramos, Jesus Navas, Jose Antonio Reyes. His left foot became part of Sevilla folklore on 27 April 2006, when he struck a dramatic late goal against FC Schalke 04 in the UEFA Cup semi-final. That goal sent Sevilla to the final, and into one of the most successful eras in their history. Over 15 unforgettable months, the club lifted 5 trophies. Puerta scored his penalty in the 2007 UEFA Cup final against RCD Espanyol, with the calm of a veteran, not a 22-year-old. Europe was watching. Arsenal, Manchester United, Real Madrid. Interest was building. Spain had already capped him once in a Euro 2008 qualifier against Sweden. The future felt enormous. And then, in one unbearable week, it was gone. What made the loss even more painful was what awaited him off the pitch. His girlfriend was expecting their first child. He would never meet his son. The shockwaves were immediate. Players from Sevilla and rivals Real Betis stood side by side at his funeral, united in grief. A Champions League qualifier was postponed. During the UEFA Super Cup against AC Milan, every player wore Puerta on the back of their shirt. Black armbands replaced celebration. Even years later, when Spain won Euro 2008 and the 2010 World Cup, Sergio Ramos and Jesus Navas lifted tribute shirts bearing his name, a reminder that some teammates are never forgotten. Sevilla tried to retire his number 16 shirt, wanting it to belong to him forever. Regulations complicated that promise, but emotionally, that number will always carry his story. Antonio Puerta's story is not just about a tragic death. It is a reminder of how fragile even the strongest among us can be. It is about dreams interrupted, about teammates who became brothers, about a city that still whispers his name. The summer of 1993 was supposed to mark the beginning of a new era for the Boston Celtics. Instead, it became one of the darkest chapters in franchise history. On July 27, 1993, Reggie Lewis collapsed during an off-season workout at Brandeis University. Teammates initially thought he might have simply fainted from exhaustion, but when he failed to respond, panic set in. Despite efforts to revive him, Lewis was pronounced dead later that day. He was just 27 years old. The tragedy didn't come out of nowhere. Only months earlier, during Game 1 of the Celtics' first-round playoff series against the Charlotte Hornets in April 1993, Lewis had suddenly collapsed on the court at Boston Garden. In a chilling moment witnessed live by thousands in the arena and many more on television, he lay motionless before being helped off the floor. He returned later in the game and even finished with 17 points, but the image of him falling backward without contact stunned the basketball world. Doctors soon began a series of evaluations. What followed was confusion and controversy. Some specialists diagnosed him with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a serious and potentially fatal heart condition that has claimed the lives of several young athletes. Other medical experts disagreed, suggesting a less severe cardiac arrhythmia that might be manageable with treatment and monitoring. The conflicting opinions created enormous tension between Lewis, his family, team physicians, and independent cardiologists. Ultimately, Lewis sought clearance from outside specialists and was told he could resume basketball-related activities under certain conditions. He began light workouts that summer, determined to return and lead Boston into a new era. He never got the chance. An autopsy later revealed that Lewis suffered from arrhythmogenic right ventricular cardiomyopathy, ARVC, a condition that can disrupt the heart's electrical signals and trigger sudden cardiac arrest. At the time, screening methods for such disorders were far less advanced than they are today, and awareness around athlete-specific cardiac risks was limited. Lewis had been entering his prime. Drafted 22nd overall in 1987 out of Northeastern University, he steadily developed into one of the league's most reliable two-way wings. By the early 1990s, he was the Celtics' franchise cornerstone. He averaged over 20 points per game in 4 consecutive seasons and earned All-Star honors in 1992. With Larry Bird retired and Boston transitioning into a new phase, many believed Lewis was the bridge between the dynasty years and the next generation of championship contention. His death sent shockwaves across the NBA. Players struggled to process how someone so young and seemingly healthy could be gone overnight. Celtics teammates were devastated. The organization retired his number 35 jersey later that season, ensuring his legacy would remain part of the franchise's identity. Beyond the emotional impact, Lewis's passing intensified league-wide discussions about cardiac screening and medical protocols for athletes. The NBA and other professional sports organizations began re-evaluating pre-participation physicals, electrocardiogram testing, and monitoring standards. While tragedies have still occurred in sports, awareness and preventive measures have improved significantly since the early 1990s. More than 3 decades later, Reggie Lewis remains one of basketball's great what-if stories. He wasn't just a talented scorer with a smooth mid-range game and defensive versatility. He was widely respected for his quiet leadership, professionalism, and humility. In a city that had already experienced the emotional farewell of the Bird era, Lewis represented hope, stability, the future. Instead, his name is forever tied to a heartbreaking reminder of how fragile even elite athletic careers can be.
All time. Yo, there she goes. Come on, let's see it. I know it's in here.
This past Wednesday, in which the Hornets captain was killed, just an absolutely tragic and senseless as...
January 12th, 2000. It was just another practice day for the Charlotte Hornets. The season was rolling forward. Playoff hopes were realistic. The locker room energy was normal. Music playing, sneakers squeaking, teammates joking after drills. Routine. And then, In a matter of seconds, everything fractured. After finishing practice at the Old Charlotte Coliseum, Bobby Phils left the arena in his black Porsche 911. Nearby was his teammate and close friend, David Wesley, driving his own vehicle. What began as a drive home quickly turned reckless. According to investigators and later court testimony, the two players were speeding along a busy stretch of Interstate 77 in Charlotte. Witnesses described the cars accelerating aggressively, at times exceeding 100 miles per hour. Whether it was competitive instinct, adrenaline, or a moment of poor judgment, the situation escalated fast. Then came the split second that could never be undone. Phils lost control of his Porsche. The car swerved across multiple lanes of traffic, struck another vehicle, and then slammed broadside into a concrete median barrier before crashing into a light pole. The impact was catastrophic. Emergency responders arrived within minutes, but the force of the crash had been too severe. Bobby Phils was pronounced dead at the scene. He was 30 years old. News traveled back to the arena almost immediately. Teammates who had just shared the court with him minutes earlier were suddenly gathered and told their friend, their brother, was gone. Practice plans were replaced with disbelief. Silence swallowed the locker room. Phils wasn't a headline superstar. He didn't chase scoring titles or endorsement deals, but inside NBA circles his reputation was rock solid. A defensive specialist, a player who volunteered to guard the opponent's best scorer every single night. He had taken on assignments against stars like Michael Jordan and never backed down. He was respected for his toughness, his professionalism, and his voice in the locker room. Coaches trusted him. Younger players leaned on him. Teammates described him as steady, the kind of presence that keeps a team grounded during an 82-game grind. The shock reverberated across the league. Games were played under a cloud of grief. Around the NBA, players spoke openly about how quickly life can change. For the Hornets, the season continued, but it no longer felt the same. Every defensive stop, every timeout huddle carried an invisible absence. Later that year, the Hornets permanently retired Phil's number 13 jersey. It rose into the rafters, not because of gaudy statistics, but because of impact, leadership, character, art. The tragedy also forced difficult conversations about responsibility. David Wesley later acknowledged the racing behavior and expressed deep remorse, a painful truth that added complexity to an already devastating loss. Legal proceedings followed, and the incident became a sobering reminder of how quickly competitive instincts can spill beyond the court.
Ndërkohë që ka probleme Dwamena.
It was November 11th, 2023, in Albania, when football turned silent. Raphael Dwamena, just 28 years old, was leading the line for KF Ignacia in a league clash against FK Partizani. He was in motion 1 second, sprinting, scanning, alive with that familiar striker's hunger, and the next, he was down. No challenge, no contact, just a sudden collapse. Teammates immediately waved for medical help. The referee stopped the match. Paramedics rushed onto the pitch as confusion rippled through the stadium. Supporters who had been chanting moments earlier now stood frozen, watching in disbelief. Despite desperate attempts to revive him, Raphael Dwamena was pronounced dead on the way to the hospital. The cause was sudden cardiac arrest. For many, it was shocking. For those who knew his history, it was heartbreaking in a different way. Dwamena's career had always carried a shadow. Years earlier, while rising rapidly through European football, doctors discovered a serious heart condition. In 2017, he was on the verge of what looked like a life-changing move to Brighton and Hove Albion, after scoring 12 goals in 18 matches for FC Zurich. It should have been his breakthrough into the Premier League. Instead, he failed his medical due to a heart abnormality. The transfer collapsed. A dream dissolved overnight. To protect his life, he underwent surgery and had an implantable cardioverter defibrillator, ICD, fitted in his chest, a device designed to shock his heart back into rhythm if it stopped. It was a safeguard, a warning that his body had limits. But Dwamena was never someone who accepted limits easily. He moved on to play for Levante UD in La Liga, later going on loan to Real Zaragoza and continuing his journey across Denmark and Austria. His career became a cycle of promise, setback, and return. Each time doubt surfaced about his heart, he stepped away, and each time he fought his way back. In 2021, while playing in Austria, he collapsed during a match. That day, the ICD inside his chest delivered a life-saving shock. It restarted his heart. It gave him another chance. Many would have taken that as a final warning. But football was more than a profession to Dwamena. It was identity. It was purpose. It was life itself. When he signed with KF Ignatia in Albania, he made a decision that would define his final chapter. He had the ICD removed. He wanted to play freely again, without the constant reminder of fragility beneath his ribs. Doctors had cautioned him before. The risks were clear. Still, he chose the pitch, and for a while it felt like redemption. He scored, he celebrated, he smiled. In 2023, he even netted twice in a European qualifier for Ignatia, reigniting belief that he had truly outrun his past. Fans admired his courage. Teammates respected his resilience. He looked like a man rewriting his own story. But some battles are fought quietly, deep inside the body. That November afternoon, as he lay on the grass surrounded by medics, the stadium grew unbearably still. Players from both sides were in tears. The game no longer mattered. The scoreboard no longer mattered. Within hours, the news traveled from Albania to Europe and then back home to Ghana, where Dwamena had once dazzled scouts at the Red Bull Ghana Academy with his explosive pace and finishing. To many young players, he had been proof that talent and determination could carry you from dusty local pitches to Europe's brightest stages. The following day, football matches across Albania were postponed in mourning. Tributes poured in from clubs, teammates, and supporters around the world. They spoke not only of his goals, but of his spirit, his warmth in the locker room, his refusal to surrender to fear, his determination to live fully despite knowing the risks. In February 2024, he was laid to rest on a football pitch in Accra, Ghana, a symbolic farewell for a man whose life began and ended with the game. He was buried with his boots and jersey, surrounded by family, friends, and grieving fans.